many Christians, evangelism is uncomfortable and awkward, but maybe that's because we're going about it the wrong way. To help, we've asked Anna Rapay to share a series about personal evangelism.
Hi, Anna Rapay here from Dawbar House. I want to share a little bit about what I've learned about introducing people to Jesus. Something I consider to be a relational approach to evangelism. And I know when I say the word evangelism, that brings up some negative feelings for at least some of you. Because if you were anything like me and you grew up in the church, you had been told by people what it means to evangelize. To go out on the street and just randomly kind of accost someone and try to get them to talk to you about what they think about eternity and how they're going to experience that, what they believe about God. And those conversations can be really uncomfortable. I think relational evangelism can be both harder and easier than that. It's harder because you're invested in a relationship, and so it matters kind of what that conversation goes like. If you're just talking to somebody randomly on the street, it doesn't really matter if they agree with you, disagree with you, if they scorn you, if they make fun of you. It's kind of easy to recover from that. But when you're invested in a personal relationship with somebody, it matters how that conversation goes. And so that way it is a little bit harder, but it's also easier because it's a little bit more like introducing people to someone you already know. So take a minute and imagine what it would be like if you were at a dinner party or a pool party or doing something with a group of people and you had this really great friend that you loved, that you were going to introduce to this other really great friend that you loved. You're going to walk up to both of them or grab one of them by the hand and say, come on, I want you to meet this other person. And so you say, hey, Bob, this is Melissa. Melissa, this is Bob. I want you guys to meet each other. I think you're both really great. And by the way, you both love to travel. And then you kind of step back and let them talk to each other. What if we looked at evangelism like that? What if we looked at it like, hey, I know this person, this God named Yahweh, this person named Jesus, and I want you to know him too. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, and then I'm going to step aside and let you get to know him personally. It's a little bit like this guy and his shadow. I think a lot of times when we think about evangelism, we think about this list of things that somebody has to believe in order to follow God. And we're so concerned with the state of their soul that we don't think about how it is that we're inviting people into relationship with a living, breathing being who is God. This guy and his shadow, evangelism, maybe when I'm talking about a list of beliefs, is more like introducing people to the shadow, where maybe you can get a little bit of definition about who that person is or what they look like or what's important to them, but you don't really know. It's not the same as if you walked up to this guy and you shook his hand and you said, hey, let's go out for coffee and let's talk. And I realize the invisibility of God makes it a little bit more maybe like a virtual relationship. So, I'm introducing you to somebody who is a little bit afar and not immediately present in the body in front of you. But at the same time, I think evangelism is more like introducing people to the guy than to the ideas about the guy, about, what a great runner he is, or what a great photographer he is. Those are ideas that maybe are true about this guy, but you don't know him until you've met him, until you've had a conversation with him, until you've talked to him. And so when I think about evangelism, I think it's more like introducing people to the actual person, not to the ideas about the person. There's a little bit of precedent for this in Scripture, and this relational approach to evangelism. Paul was in Athens, and I don't know if you've ever been to Athens or you know anything about Athens, but it is a city with a lot of hills. If you walk through in the kind of valley areas and you turn full circle and you look around, you see all these hills dotted around the city. And on each of these, or on many of these hills, you'll see a temple. This particular temple is the Parthenon, and apparently it's under reconstruction, as it often is in this photo. But you see all these temples at the high places, and I just imagine Paul as he walks through the city day after day and looking around and seeing all of the different gods that the people of Athens were worshiping. And then he comes upon this place where there's an idol or an altar to an unknown God. And Paul gets this idea like, hey, I know this God. So he goes to the Areopagus, which is where all these people are sitting. It's just a rocky place where people used to meet. I don't think there used to be stairs there. You probably had to climb up on a path or something. But he went and he talked to the people of Athens and he said, listen, I can see walking through this city how devout you are and how much you care about religion and about making the proper sacrifices to the gods who are involved. But I saw this altar to this unknown God, and I want you to know, I know who this is. This is Yahweh, and let me tell you about him. And so Paul, instead of standing there saying, this temple, this Parthenon needs to be destroyed because it's worshiping a God that doesn't exist, takes a minute and looks at the culture that exists and the things that exist in that culture. And he says, I know this God. I want to tell you about him. I want you to be able to worship this unknown God. So let me tell you about Yahweh. And you may remember that Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus, had a personal experience with Jesus, and was able to explain his experiences and what he knew from Peter and the others who followed Jesus about God. So what if we looked at evangelism that way? What if we looked at it and said, what can I do to introduce you to a God that I know? Because he's important to me and he's part of my life and I worship him with my life. And I want to share that part of me with you too. What if we took time to know God in a personal way, to have a personal conversation with God about the things in our life, to invite him into our lives and into the daily parts of our lives. And as we experienced him, to build up this wealth of stories about how he's been faithful, about how he's been good, about how he has showed up for us time and time again. And then what if we made our introductions to people about who this God is and said, hey, this is a time and a place that God has This is a time and a place that God has interacted with me in a powerful way, and this is how it affected me. And then what if we got out of the way and allowed the personal God who is Yahweh, who over the course of history has pursued people and pursued relationships with people? What if we allowed them to get to know each other? And we just stood by to help interpret or to help talk or to help explain or to ask further questions. But we didn't try to micromanage what people believed about God. And we just introduced them to him. And then what if we continue to pray for God to move in their lives? What do you think would happen if that was the way we viewed evangelism? There's more to come on this relational approach to evangelism in a further couple of videos. I hope to see you there.